And welcome to
Dragons,
Dragons
Unicorns, I recognize that one,
and
Other Creative Creatures. Creative, crazy, what else? Hi, everybody. Oh, boy.
Hi. Welcome to our own private fun fest. If you don't have a good time, turn it off. We don't care.
Caffeinated creatures.
Caffeinated creatures. So,
I'm Rona Gofstein, and this is
Dr. Kevin.
Doctor.
Doctor.
Give me the news.
I got a bad case of loving you. Anyways, so, okay. So, before we introduce today's guest, I want to talk to you about creativity in weight loss.
I'm still creatively trying to find a way to make carbs work.
Yeah. So because I've lost a bunch of weight. You are in a process of losing a bunch of weight. So, and you know.
Eliminating.
Of eliminating, of lovingly
Releasing.
having pass away. Well, if it's dead, it can't come back unless it's a zombie. So, you know.
We've had those writers.
So anyways,
yes.
So how are you doing this? Is there a diet method? What are you doing?
Weight Watchers.
You're doing Weight Watchers.
I am. I'm following Weight Watchers.
So now when they watch your weight, is their job to watch it walk away?
That's my job. I get, it's funny, the name is so dated in some ways at this point because their language and how they talk about what they do is moving so far away from the concept of a diet program and a weight program. In the last 2 years, they've moved much more into looking at non-scale goals and how your whole life is influenced by this and how you can use your whole life to influence it. And they certainly are about the creativity involved in it because they want you to feel good about everything you're doing, not just about weight loss. It's not about when I lose the weight, then I'll be happy kind of thing. They are very much into if you're happy now, the weight will go. So what can you do now and how can you take care of yourself now in addition to weight loss? And so they have actually gotten more creative, not to mention the fact that their program, which changes almost yearly, although a year ago, January, it changed dramatically. And then this year it tweaked a bit. So like if you see their commercials, they talk all about, quite a number of 0-point foods. Now that includes all fruits and vegetables in that huge list, but 0-point foods now include white meat chicken, white meat turkey, tofu, all beans, all fish, all shellfish. It's wonderful. It really has made planning easier. It has made going out easier for me. I'm making better choices. So I am being more creative. And you know me, I don't love to cook. So I have found easy recipes that I can work with that the kids like and that I like. And
because I used a number of different things to lose weight. And the one thing, and you've lost how much?
Well, actually, since I started Weight Watchers, a bit more, but since the beginning of this year, about 7 pounds.
Okay, that's good.
Yes.
So, according to the scale, I put on, my initial was I put on 19 pounds on my honeymoon, though I knew that at least 9 of it would be gone within the first 5 days because it's just like bloat and travel and
and eating differently and all of that.
Eating differently. But, if you don't have a relationship with your food that's positive, and you and for our artists, our creators, our creatives of all kinds out there, is creatively engage with your eating lifestyle. I did HCG for 1 month of the time that I lost, that I was doing weight loss, and then I've done some of the keto, and I've switched so my body isn't just doing the same thing and getting adjusted to it.
But even when you exercise, you also not only find creative ways to exercise, but you also have found ways to be creative while exercising. I mean, a lot of people, if you're jogging or running or walking, it's a great time for the creative mind to have fun.
I was doing affirmations and mantras while I was swimming all those laps and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different things, but if you want to lose the weight and
Bless bless you.
Excuse me. We'll cut that part out. If you want to lose the weight and keep it off, you have to create an eating lifestyle that you can be happy with.
Yes.
And you have to decide what your tolerance is. Some people, if you gave them the same meal every Tuesday, every Wednesday, you know, like.
Oh, that's
Tuesday
what my
was
father
his
grew up with. That was his one rule when he got married, was not to know what day of the week it was by what was for dinner.
Yeah, but for some people that works.
Some people that works, yeah.
But for other people, I being one of them, if I can play with my food, and you know, one of the things, because I love to cook. I love to cook as much as you don't like to cook. Yep. A perfect match.
It is, yeah.
It is. There's so much you can do with spices, and no matter what eating lifestyle you're on, you know, Atkins, keto, Weight Watchers, HCG, whatever it is, you can do a ton with spices.
Yes. My father always said he could be vegetarian if he could have somebody who came in and cooked Indian for him all the time.
Yeah.
So they do some amazing.
If you are starting to move towards spring is coming, I want to look good for the summer, I want to look good in my bathing suit, I want to look good in my shorts, I want to look good at the nudist camp, whatever your case is. Then get a relationship with your food.
Yeah, that works for you.
That works for you, that you can play with, that you can stay creative.
Man.
And also do the work as you let that, as you release that fat of making sure you deal with whatever you stored in it. Because we store emotions in our fat.
Well, certainly I ate for the emotional reasons, so
Yep.
doesn't seem to surprise me that what got put on because of the eating has emotions in it too.
If you want to do it, you want to journal or meditate or do affirmation, do something so that you're also, you know, like when my mantra is I joyfully, permanently, expediently, and efficiently release any and all excess fat from my body and weight from my life.
Ooh.
And do so in ways which is healthy, harmonious, and happy for my body and my life.
Wow, I'm impressed you can remember all those adverbs and adjectives.
And I do this in love with gratitude for how that weight and fat has served me. Because it serves us.
Absolutely. Everything we do that works or doesn't work is serving us in one way, shape, or form.
So as we are going into springtime, and a lot of people are thinking now's the time to get rid of the hibernation fat.
New England, we don't go into springtime here.
By the time the show gets out, we will be.
Only on the calendar.
Oh, stop pouting. If you pout, it pushes your cheeks out and you can't tell you've lost as much weight. Speaking of pushing your cheeks out, why don't you...
What's that got to do with anything?
Push your cheeks out towards today's guest and introduce her.
I would love to introduce today's guest. Our today's guest is Elaine Isaak, who also writes as E.C. Ambrose, who writes fantasy, and she's bleh. See, the puffing the cheeks out didn't work.
She's a fantasy author, a history buff, and an accidental scholar.
Yeah, she trips over scholarly things.
She trips. I don't know. Not only is she the author of several series, including The Singer's Crown, The Dark Apostle, along with several standalone novels and numerous short fictions, but she's also a clothing designer. So she does not only the characters, but the clothes they're going to wear. I love it.
Apparently.
Okay, so much for the nudist resort. She is a proud art school dropout. Go dropout. And lives with her family and her very friendly dog, whose name is not mentioned. So that dog is now pouting because his name wasn't mentioned.
Well, does he know what pushes his cheeks out?
In New Hampshire. And there is a word to the wise. Do you want to give the word to the wise?
I will give the word to the wise because, yes, you do not want to be the hero of one of her books.
Oh, I haven't read any of them, so I have to find out.
You don't want to, but welcome, Elaine.
Welcome, Elaine. And what's the name of the dog?
Very nice to be there. The dog's name is Lily.
So it's a her.
It's a her. Yeah.
Hi, Lily. Hello.
Oh, good girl.
Good girl, Lily. We all know she couldn't write if it wasn't for you as her muse.
That's right, puppy muse.
Puppy muse. Okay, go ahead.
Do dogs sit on writing the way cats do? Like, will she sit while you're typing at all or when you're working?
She usually curls up right sort of between my office chair and my shelf of of my own books.
Oh, that's not bad. My cat likes either the paper or what, or my actual. It's if it's not warm, wise, if it's not for sitting, why is it warm? So definitely, I get that.
Right.
I actually sometimes wonder if my cat wants to write, and he's trying to get me off the computer so he can write his tell-all memoir about.
And it would be a racy one, I'm sure.
I don't.
The cats usually lurk on the other side when they're hanging around and sort of stare at me intently.
Plotting.
Okay, so I want you to tell me why, and we have some of your book covers coming up. So right at the get-go, you have caught my imagination because I'm an avid reader. Why would I not want to be a hero in, now, The Dark Apostle? So there's Alicia Damon. How do you pronounce it?
Elisha Demon is the latest, the fifth and final volume.
Okay, and what is Alicia Barber? Okay, so are they all Alicia something?
Yes.
Okay, so tell The Dark Apostle. Why don't I want to be your hero? And tell us a little bit about this series.
Well, this is a dark historical fantasy set in medieval England, and it focuses on a barber surgeon who discovers he has an unnatural affinity with death. So, people often look at the cover of this book, and there was a cover reveal on a blog site where they, sort of solicit feedback on the cover, and one of them said, "It makes me think medieval Dexter." And I was like, yes.
Yes, it does make me think that, and that would seem to go with your description. I was thinking Sweeney Todd, too.
I was thinking Sweeney Todd.
Is often the first thing that comes to mind for people.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you look at the cover and you think, wow, that looks really interesting and intense, and I think I'd like that, then you should go for it. And if you think that looks kind of creepy, then give it to your friend who likes Game of Thrones. It is a grim and gritty, realistic medieval fantasy, including lots of surgical scenes.
Oh.
This would be pre-anesthesia,
Well, back then, alcohol or a cudgel were the anesthesia.
If you had them handy.
Yes.
And if you didn't, tough luck, and pre any sort of cleanliness.
No antiseptics.
Antiseptic, that was the word I wanted. Yes, pre-lister.
You just spit.
Man, that was not a good time.
The Dark Apostle. This is the Dark Apostle series. Now, which one is the first one in the series?
Elisha Barber is the first book.
Okay.
And the surname, so it's Elisha Barber, Elisha Magus, Elisha Rex, Elisha Mancer, which stands for necromancer, and then Elisha Demon is the final volume. Kind of tracking his course as he grows in power and influence and danger.
So he's a necromancer at some point.
Well, you did say he has quite the affinity for death.
He has a very special relationship with death, thanks to spending so long trying to stop it.
Oh.
Okay.
So is it does he find himself accepting it, or does he find himself more and more adversarial? No giving away. I don't want to give anything away. Sorry.
Without spoilers, it's a little bit of both.
Cool.
He reaches an understanding that there are times and places when you have to let go, when death is the right choice, when surrender is the appropriate.
Let it go. Oh, sorry.
But no, I understand that. I actually, Piers Anthony's On a Pale Horse, the first in the Incarnations of Immortality, our hero who becomes death really has serious issues around death itself, and then not having to be it. He's really kind of pissed. So, yes, and he too comes to that sort of, death is neither on the side of good nor evil. It's neutral in its own way. Even though we don't see it, we tend not to see it that way.
I did a whole radio series. I think we did like 9 shows, and all on death and why do we have such an issue with death. And we looked at death from like everything from the death of a person to suicide to murder to death of a relationship, death of a self, of an illusion. But that from each death springs life. And
They're two sides of the same
Yeah,
moment.
Yes.
and so I find it interesting. I'm trying to decide whether I would read it or not.
Oh, I think
yet.
you'd love it.
See,
but you finished the series. Game of Thrones is still yet up in the air. Okay, so that is the finish, right? The 5th book is the final book. Okay.
And I tried watching the Game of Thrones and couldn't, which is really bizarre. But it didn't call me.
Right.
It happens.
At all. But I love Laurel K. Hamilton, and she does a lot of stuff with death with her Anita Blake series and stuff like that.
I think this looks a little grittier than Anita's work.
Oh, I don't know. She
Laurel's
gets pretty
book.
gritty in some of the
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
The early ones weren't so much.
No. She got grittier as she went on. But anyway, so Gritty's interesting. So where did this come from? How has death affected your life?
Ooh, there's a question.
Well, if you're doing 5 books centered on death, I have assumed that you have to have created a relationship
Either that or
yourself
you had a
with death.
really bad barber experience once.
Well, the series genesis was actually in researching the medieval surgery. And the idea that it's such a very high-stakes environment, not surgery in general, the practice of medicine, and then especially during the Middle Ages, as you pointed out, we have no anesthesia, we have no antiseptics, we have no real understanding of how the body works.
We're just going to kind of
We
do
have a lot of crazy theories.
Just going to grab the leeches, grab the knife, and hope and pray.
Right.
Oh,
right.
God. I'm sorry. Just the thought of that, it's just... that just gives you the willies from the start. So
that
you
was
were
kind of-
researching that.
Right. For actually the Singer's Crown, we didn't mention the Singer's Crown is my first series. And for the second book, I wanted to know a little bit more about medieval surgery for one scene where a character gets injured. I wanted him to be treated using period medical techniques appropriate to, in this case, it's a secondary world fantasy, but it's around 12th century or so. So I started reading up on medieval surgery and getting fascinated by that. And that was when I met the character of Elisha, sort of walked into my life with blood dripping from his hands and said, "My God, I've killed them all." And I
Well,
said,
that's
who has
an
he killed
opening.
and why and what's going to be the result of that?
And how is he going to live with it?
Which is very interesting. Now, you wrote that as Elaine Isaak,
Right.
the Crown series, and this is as E.C. Ambrose. So one could read one series, really like it, but not necessarily know that E.C. Ambrose or Elaine Isaak are the same person, because you say the character carries over, but I take it it's not named the same character in the
No,
Singer's
these
Crown?
books are completely separate.
Okay.
It's completely
He walked into her mind, not her book.
Okay. Oh, well, I thought maybe he walked, well, and I get
We
that.
can now break into the
as a
song where if he
writer.
walked into my life today
Ah.
from Maine. No, we won't do
If
that.
you'd like.
Yes.
While doing one, he showed up. It had to be tabled so she could finish that, and then she could
But
get
part
to
of the
this.
idea is that these books are a lot, these ones are sort of, I hesitate to use the word lighthearted, but this is more
Compared
like
to-
traditional fantasy.
Okay.
So kings and princes and magic and romance and sort of the higher-minded things that we think of in terms of the Middle Ages. The chivalric code, those kinds of concerns. Whereas the Elisha books take us into the streets, into the brothels, and the people who live and work there.
And then where most of the people actually were.
So it's a very different feel to the books. I'm sure I have some crossover readers, but I suspect there are many people who enjoyed The Singer's Crown who might feel a little uncomfortable with the level of sort of grit and personal violence that occurs in the Elisha series. So.
How does it feel to be finished with a book? It's a series that's 5 books long. That's a lot of time from beginning to end, from the day you wrote down those first words to the day you revised.
It was
the
about
last
12
one.
years,
That's a lot.
actually,
Of time.
from starting the Elisha series. It's sort of bittersweet.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I've been anticipating that moment for a long time, especially when I came up with the idea for the series climax, and I thought, oh, that's a horrible, awful, brilliant, terrible thing to do, and so I have to do it.
That's my must.
But now that it's actually here,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a breakup. I have to look at Elisha and say, well, it's not you, it's me. I have to move on. I have to find new characters. I have to go to new places, and there's just not
You can't
the
come with me.
space for you. Exactly. Can't come with me anymore.
Now, how many was the Singer's Crown a multiple series as well, or just
Multiple
a
book.
standalone?
Yeah, The Singer's Crown, there are 3 books, The
Okay.
Singer's Crown, The Eunuch's Heir, and The Bastard Queen. And that's a generational saga. So each book is children of characters from the previous
Oh, I
volume.
love that.
So it's kind of open-ended. The new characters have to deal with the problems caused
Left
by the
by-
solutions in the previous book. So their parents think they've got everything wrapped up, we took care of that, no problem. And their solutions are sort of causing new problems in the next generation.
Gee, we've never seen that happen in real life.
Gosh. Yeah, so that's coming from a different
So that is
different
different.
place. So
yeah.
there could be more. I'd like to write more when the
Yeah.
opportunity arises.
Yeah. I was always a big fan of the Susan Harwich Church England series that
I think I know that one.
starts in the 20s and it ends in the 1990s, and
Oh,
you're
okay.
now into third generation of these Anglican ministers and their problems and their children and stuff like this. So
Yeah.
yeah. But
The
I
first-
love being able to follow and see how an author crafts how the parents' sins are going to show up as the
and
children's
that's a huge
dysfunctions.
process, a very different one than taking one character and going, no, this is what I'm going to do to him, as
Yeah.
opposed to taking. The first time I ever ran across that in a book that I read the whole series was Jennifer Roberson's The Chronicles of the Chez Soleil. Yeah, and that one takes about 3. We have a prophecy at the very beginning, and I think it takes 6 books and at least 3, if not 4 generations, to have it come to pass finally in the last book. And I have to admit that was the first time I had to watch characters that I loved from the first book die by the second or third, just from time, not necessarily violence. And I was just like,
Yeah, it's difficult to let go. There was one character I realized that he was going to die in the series, and then I went back and I wrote
Terrible.
another scene for him.
just to keep him a little longer.
Yeah, so that I didn't have to say goodbye quite as soon.
And you had said, it's funny, you had said at the very beginning, there's all sorts of deaths. There's the literal ones and stuff, but then there's the metaphorical ones, the relationships and stuff like that. And as you've just said, you have to say goodbye to a character, a series of. Do you know what's next on your horizon?
I have a writing buddy.
okay, good.
Whom I Skype with on Monday evenings, and I was talking with him about this. He's also a reader of mine, which is great. And the book he's working on is a book about prayer. So he's a minister, and I've known him for years and years and years. And I was sort of explaining this bittersweet feeling of having to let go of sort of loss, basically coming to my office and not finding my friends there in some strange way. And he said these are also people that we carry on our hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the way that we've carried Frodo in our hearts.
That's
because
true.
he saved the Shire and then he had to leave it. And that affects us, even though he was never real.
How many
in the
people
sense that
could
people
not
can
read
go.
the last Harry Potter book? My father waited, and he is a huge fan of the series, had read the first 6 several times, and took a while before he could actually bring himself to start the 7th, knowing that when he finished, the series would be finished. It's hard.
Yeah.
They really do create and become part of our lives.
So, one of the things that I want to point out here is we have people that we hear about or maybe see once or twice a year, if that, or they may have died in our childhood or whatever, that we carry on with us, grandparents or family things. But we can't even remember, we barely remember them or whatever. There was no tangibility to us. It wasn't like they were in our daily lives. How much more is a quote unquote fictional character in our daily lives if they are a character that is appearing in a half a dozen or more books that
Oh yeah, talk to the fandoms of some of these books or television series or any of them. They are passionate and know them better probably than they know some of their relatives.
Well, the reader co-creates the reality of that work.
Yeah.
These are my words, and then once they pass to you, you receive them, and you open it all up inside of yourself.
Yes. That's why I don't
and
always like
get to a much
movies
more
of-
intimate relationship than typically we would with a movie or even with a
Absolutely,
TV show
because
where
it
we have
looks
recurring
different.
characters.
As you said, you co-create. It's one of the reasons why I'm always glad that as a genre, my genre of romance tends not to be translated a lot to the screen. Our bestsellers tend not to show up instantly there, whereas science fiction and some of the others do. Because I see the hero I want to see, or the heroine takes on my qualities as well. And I think people who love to read, I think that's part of what they love about it. That co-creating.
Oftentimes in interviews, people will ask, so, if you could cast the film of Elisha Barber, who would play the lead character? Gosh, I have no idea, because he doesn't look like an actor to me. He looks like Elisha. I have a very clear impression of who he is.
But not.
But he's in here. He's not out there.
And
And
I
some
find-
authors are the other way around. Some authors will take photographs of actors or actresses and sort of cast them into the roles in their books, and that's one of their inspiration sources for writing.
I start with that. I will, after I kind of have an idea, I will start looking for images that help me, just so that when when I get off, I can just kind of just stare and look at that. But that's also what happens when movies come out. I mean, I can't remember how many of the Harry Potter books were out when the first movie came out, but after that point, Harry in everybody's head looked like Daniel Radcliffe. He probably didn't look like that
He became
before,
Harry.
but now he does. Now he always
Yep.
will.
Yep, and that happens. Well, in your case, if this ever became a movie set or became a movie and things like this, you know, you might want to be to say, bring me some very talented, very unknown actors,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to keep looking and go, that's him.
That'll do.
That will be the one that does it.
So when HBO calls.
Right.
So, do you have another series percolating?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah!
Ooh.
I love that mad scientist.
The fingers went.
So the book we're shopping right now is called Drake Master, and it is another historical epic fantasy novel, this time set in China during the Mongol invasion. And it centers around a clockwork doomsday device. So
Oh, I think I saw
that was a lot of fun.
Well, there's this, and
this
it's
is where
gonna, and then there's going to be.
Right, where the accidental scholar and history buff part sort of comes together. I was doing a lot of reading on the history of technology, and in particular clockworks, and the technology of astronomy, viewing the stars. And I discovered the astronomical clock of Susung, which was from 1090 AD. It was very advanced for the time, and I thought, how cool is that? So I wrote a book about it, and then hopefully if somebody picks it up, it would become more than one book. And I have...
A doomsday clock kind of gives you a nice pacing problem, instant
Right.
issue, you know,
Doomsday clock
external.
is ticking down, and you have
Yeah,
to,
we got a problem.
first they have to find it.
That would be a good start. And then we're going to have to stop it, which probably will be a completely different challenge.
Right. So, and then the book that I have resting right now that I need to go back to and revise is called The Forest of Bone. And it is my first ever shapeshifters work.
Ooh.
I always thought that I wouldn't write about shapeshifters. There have been a lot of, you know, sort of sexy werewolves and vampires, and, you know, I'm not attracted to it in and of itself. And then I thought, well, it'd be fun if I had shapeshifters who obeyed conservation of mass. So,
So no bigger
a
than you
person
are.
might transform into a wolf or a cougar, or several hundred rats, for example. So I started spinning
Right,
out
say
all of the
just
ideas
to keep
that
the mass
could
the
come
same.
of that. Right. Or, you know, a bunch of falcons.
Rather than just one.
So I'd like to
Rather than
have
just
my original shapeshifting form be a brontosaurus.
And then I can weigh whatever the hell I want.
That I could
But then if
really
you took human form, you'd have to be
Huge.
You know, dozens of people.
Jabba.
Now that's an interesting flip, though. Okay, so you had one person becoming, you know, an entire clouder of cats, potentially. Woohoo, I got to use that expression.
job.
Thank you. Or you could have one very, very large, you know, animal becoming more than one person. I hadn't thought of it in the reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's usually considered as the people beginning with the magic. and
yes,
then
I realize
transforming
that. So
way, but-
rather than the other way around, but did you have fun with
But
that
there's a
one?
lot of interesting places to go with this concept.
I'll
So,
bet.
I especially had fun with the rat character, who is, of course, the spy master.
Of course.
for
What
the
else
goddess,
would? And
because
rats are extremely intelligent and
He
very
can
organized.
Go anywhere, and nobody knows he's there. And anyhow,
People don't want to see him, so you,
Right.
you know, so they don't. You ignore, you know, and don't notice what you don't want to see. And as
Yeah,
if,
we only notice rats when we elect him to office. Oh,
oh my.
I should have known that was going there. I should have known. So now, in addition to writing and these huge series in your copious free time,
you
also
make clothes.
design clothes.
When did that jump happen? What did you do first? Did you make clothes first and then become a writer, or were you a writer and at some point started making clothes?
Yes.
Way back when I was a very small child, I got my first sewing machine for Christmas. Actually, when I was in first grade. So it was about the same time that I started writing stories, but the stories I was writing were very small, and the things I was sewing were not very sophisticated.
They were also very small.
Right, they were also very small. And I took up sewing because I was into stuffed animal collecting. And at the time, you could get teddy bears and sometimes dogs, but really there were not very many stuffed animals out there, so I had to make my own. and the first efforts were pretty peculiar. I have some of them.
That's great.
So I sort of made wacky stuffed animals on my own for a while.
Now we know where the shapeshifter idea came from. It was the stuffed animals
It's been
in
there all
first
along.
grade. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
When I was in high school, I sold stuffed slugs to my friends. They were one of my most popular items.
Did you name them after the teachers in high school?
That's up to the owner. Once the slug leaves
That would
my
be the
hands,
co-creation
it's-
part.
Right. So then I went to art school. This is where the art school dropout part comes in. I had started writing my trunk novel, my actual first novel, which was then put in the trunk because it should
Never to
probably
be
be
seen
left
the
there.
light of day.
And went to art school thinking I would go into actually fashion or possibly theatrical design, which would be the intersection of my literary interests and my design interest.
true.
I was kind of turned off from the fashion department at school and ended up in sculpture. And then I thought, I bet if I went back to designing stuffed animals, I'd be a lot better at it now than I was when I was 11. So for a long time, I ran my own business called Curious Characters, making original design stuffed animals. I had a newsletter where I told stories about some of them, because they were very strange creatures, not anything you would find
Of course not.
in your normal woodland. That was a lot of fun for a
And
while.
there we go. There we have one creation leading to another creation leading to.
Right, and then the writing started to take off. I had sold a couple of books. The stuffed animal business sort of went by the wayside, and I started making things I could wear when I did author appearances. Like, oh, here's another outlet. I can make something cool, and then I can wear it when I'm, going to conventions or book signings or things like that.
And we have dragon right here.
I love it. This actually reminds me of that first tapestry we had.
Yes.
That very traditional Chinese dragon.
Yeah. And we have an image that is now being shown on the camera of that dragon, which is so interesting because the image makes it look like it's redder than it looks to me
Yeah,
there.
this has a more orange color in real life and a little redder in the photography, but that could be the green background too.
Yeah.
And Elaine brought some others, so why don't we show them? Because we don't have mannequins here. If you want to donate mannequins to Dragons and Unicorns, please see the address of Hudson Cable Television. Oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty. I
So
love that, the blues.
The dark blue jacket with the blue diagonals coming down, those blue diagonals are actually scraps of hand-woven material. It's hand-dyed and then hand-woven. I made one garment out of the material in the whole, and then I still had these fun little sort of strips. So I designed a new garment around the leftovers, because it's what we do.
I'm about to say, we did that in our books too. We designed whole series around secondary
I had
characters.
to cut this character
and we-
out, but that's okay. He can have his own book.
Don't worry, don't worry. It's like The Bachelor. If you don't get picked, you may end up on your own series of your
New
own.
season.
Now,
It's also
So-
coat, but that's more woven.
Yeah,
Yes?
this is a solid hand-woven fabric.
Now, you didn't do the weaving too, did you?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I actually think of a lot of plot ideas while I'm weaving. It's very meditative in the same way that I think some people go jogging. But jogging would bore me to tears, whereas weaving, I am both creating a thing and also creating things in my own head.
so you have a, now,
So you have a loom at home.
Yes,
is
it's
it,
super simple. It's 4 harnesses. It's about that wide, which
Just-
turns out to be about as wide as you need to cut commercial patterns,
Oh, okay.
22 inches.
I used to volunteer as I think I was a 12-year-old at Strawberry Bank in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did would show them how to use the weaving loom. I would do that, and I would do candles, handmade candles, and gravestone rubbing. So the looms and the gravestone rubbing definitely worked
See?
for this interview.
Definitely. Well,
Candles, no, they had to have
Well,
candles.
they
Yeah,
had candles
medieval. Yeah, well, there we go. A perfect match.
There you go. I have to admit, I knew almost nothing about the textile industry until I moved to Lowell. And not only is Lowell big in it, but I ended up working for the Textile History Museum. And they had these enormous working looms.
Right.
And the noise, even the small looms the sound of it too must also be meditative. But they had the enormous ones, and I always joke that, the only way I could keep anything, because you have the warp, which goes up and down, and you have the weft. And the only way I could remember is because the weft went from weft to white.
That's how you push the shuttlecock.
Weft to white. There's actually a new restaurant in Lowell called Warp and Weft.
I'll have to eat there sometime. Sounds lovely.
It is, but this is gorgeous. Oh, that is too.
So this
Okay,
piece
you
is
guys
one of
missed
my
it
newer
because
works.
this one we couldn't show but Dr. Kevin tried this one on earlier and it looked rather good.
Right, we should have taken that picture. This is Nuno felt, so it's a layer of silk. The white and sort of sparkly material that you see is silk fabric, and then all the black is wool that is overlaid, and it actually, as you felt it, it shrinks through that silk material, bringing it together and making it fit more closely to the body and forming all sorts of interesting textures.
That's one of the things I'm noticing about your work. You like texture. You like things that, you know, there's nothing solid. There's direction. There's movement. There's something happening. Even just with the way the silver kind of flows, almost like smoke in that image. Oh, thank you for making that close up, everybody. Yes.
And you can, those little white sort of crinkly bits are additional silk fibers that are laid on the top to create this whirly pattern. And then in some places I allowed the silk material to show through in the black.
Now you can't edit textile making the same way you can a book. Does that?
You'd be surprised.
Maybe you
I think one of the pieces that I sent you a picture of is called Starborn, and it's based on nebulas. So it's predominantly sort of dark navy blue, and then you have those sort of swirling
there it is.
fuchsia colors, and you see that orange silk material peeking out underneath. So this jacket was planned to be felted in one. The sleeves, the entire body of the jacket would be felted at the same time. And then I got a little overzealous. And the thing about felting, of course, is you're shrinking. Anybody who's ever thrown a sweater in the washer and the dryer knows this can happen.
After it comes out, it fits on the teddy bear.
So it shrank a little too much. And I thought, now what am I supposed to do? And I planned this whole thing out. And the answer is to recut it, remove the sleeves, and find a way to make the sleeves larger. And change around the entire structure that I had in mind for the jacket. And the jacket, if it had come out perfectly as I had planned it, would have been much less interesting.
Well, but you know, I love that the jacket is like a character in a book, because we've all had a character that we had one idea for, and we start writing it, and that character takes a life on its own and suddenly becomes different than what we originally envisioned, because the character writes itself.
And we weep.
And we go, okay, not what I expected.
And then you try to put them back, and of course it doesn't work any more than it would work to, try to restretch felted material. And yet that is stunning. I can't imagine it being, I'm sure your original vision was beautiful, but oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is better. Sometimes that's the way it goes. Well, I say the same thing when I'm talking with writing students. Our first idea is probably a cliche. Our second idea is probably the reverse of the cliche. Think about Shrek, right? So, the prince kisses the princess and breaks her from the curse. So Shrek reversed that. Well, the ogre kisses the princess and they both turn into ogres. Ta-da! It's just the reverse. The third one is probably completely unworkable, and you thought of that because you're like,
donkey
this is
kissed
stupid.
her.
What am I going to do? Donkey kisses her. The fourth and fifth idea is where the magic starts to happen. That's where you're stretching yourself. You're reaching beyond the obvious and going for something more, something deeper, something stronger, and something that's more uniquely your vision than what you've seen out there in the world before, or what has influenced you to become the creative person that you are.
And that's a good thing to be told and reminded of, that, in the process, when that first and second one, feel, this has been done 1,000 times, or this feels too familiar, or this is stupid, I just saw this. And then the third one is, as you said, completely unworkable, that you keep going. It's so, the number of creatives, I think, and the number of people who, for whatever reason, stop at that third, after that third, and don't get to that fourth one, because it gets hard after the third. You're like, I can't believe I'm doing this again.
Right.
I tried it. It didn't work. It was this, and that was it. Forget it. 1, 2, 3, out. No, keep going. If there was a reason this tickled at your brain, that this character showed up, that this idea interested you, that this time period, that this color, whatever it is, keep playing with it, keep working it, even if you have to cut it open and completely restitch it, which is actually probably a good thing.
So we have another one of your creations up on the screen.
I call this one the Cape of Many Colors. Ordinarily, Nuno felt is done with silk, but you can do it with any fabric that is light enough that you can feel your breath through it if you blow through the fabric over your hand. So I bought this piece of fabric at Joann's. My daughter thought I was insane. My mother thought I was insane. They're both looking at it going, what is that? And it's like parrotfish. It's like, I said, I don't know, but I kind of like it. It's very exciting.
It is a sort of coral reefy.
So bringing it together with the blue, and then bringing back some of the patterns with that bright fuchsia again and the little bits of gold and stuff. and sort of cutting it a little bit like butterfly wings or like
That's
dragon
what I
wings.
see. I keep thinking,
Yeah.
first
Now
thought
this
of it
is
as
from
like
the,
butterfly.
is this actually from the back or
Yes,
is it?
this is from the back.
Okay. I was going to say.
And it's a jacket or a blouse
It's
or
like a cape.
a cape,
Okay.
which really could use you should have like a breeze machine on you at all times when you're wearing that, because that deserves to flutter.
Well, maybe that's going to be the outfit that her next superhero wears. Maybe it's time to
Bright color
expand.
man.
I was thinking maybe fish woman. No.
You know, I love it. I love the colors of it. I love that bright.
So you do the clothing, you're writing the book series. Where else does creativity come out in your life? And have you learned how to monetize it yet? We really need to do a show just on art monetization.
Right. Well, I was
Probably.
a sculptor for a while. So
was a
between
sculptor.
the phases, I'm still a sculptor. I self-identify as a sculptor.
Well, then you own that.
So what in the creative universe are you looking at that you haven't done that you think you would like to do?
Gosh, everything.
I know. I want to do all the things.
So one of my dreams has always been to make an outfit from head to toe. I make the shoes, probably boots, possibly Mongolian style because I did a lot of felted footwear, possibly leather. I would dye the fabrics, weave the fabrics, felt the hat, top to bottom.
Undergarments too?
So,
All right,
not so attached to the
outer
undergarments.
vestiges. Okay, I'm just checking because I have
concept,
friends who
but-
make corsetry and do that
Right,
sort of stuff.
That's
So
certainly, I've done
Yeah.
a little bit of that, but.
So when HBO calls for the Alicia Barber series, which I probably pronounced wrong again, you're not only going to pick an unknown actor to play, but you're going to be the costume designer for the show as
Consultant
well?
at least.
Consultant.
Right. That would be nice, especially because on the covers, as much as I love the cover design and the overall feel and effect of them, the clothing is not period. And that really bothers me as an original historical costumer and costume enthusiast
I was saying there is so much
in general.
research that went into
Right.
making it accurate in the pages.
So,
Yeah.
I don't think we want. I mean, I know we want it in the pages, but at the same time with the concept of co-creation, there is a. If we actually saw what they were wearing then and stuff like that, it's a little. It takes people aback. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons they don't put it on covers.
you need to leave some spaces.
That's a good point. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So you said something about your writing students. Now, so you teach writing somewhere, I take it?
Not on a regular basis, but I do lead a number of workshops. I frequently speak or teach at the science fiction fantasy conventions. I've mentored through a couple of local high schools, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So she weaves, and then actually makes the clothing of that. She weaves stories and long series, and I'm really impressed and feeling very underachieving right now. It is. It's an impressive body of work in so many different ways, and I think it should encourage people that, you don't have to choose just one thing. I'm going to be a writer, and that's all I'm going to do. I mean, it can be. That could be where. I mean, I don't know that Stephen King is weaving anywhere, or that Nora Roberts is making any sort of pottery, but they may be.
I don't know.
They may be. I have no idea. She actually does run a motel-y or like a bed and breakfast that grew out of one of her book series. So who knows? But however the muse keeps calling to you, you can keep answering.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen King, learned how to do juggling and clown makeup.
We might be a
not the
little
clown
disturbed
makeup.
by the results.
We might be a lot disturbed by the
Any more
results.
disturbed than we are by your series?
Again, don't be one of her heroes.
Don't be one of our heroes. We want to thank you very much for coming.
Thanks so much, Elaine.
Thanks for having me, Rona, Dr. Kevin.
Remember, creativity is in all of us. We are creators. We're creatives. We co-create. We recreate. Creating is what we do. And we can turn that eye to wherever we want, wherever our fingertips lead, wherever our imagination unfolds. Don't limit yourself to being just anything. Be everything you are. Namaste.